Hi, everyone. Let's keep going with Ruth. We're on Ruth 2 today. Okay, you are more than welcome to start off by pausing and reading our 12 rules of reading biblical text. And if you don't like the 12 rules, well, this isn't the place for you. If you don't understand the 12 rules, go listen to the audiobook that is uploaded on this channel because I don't have time to go over it every time. These are Bible study series that go pretty in depth. Warning, we're not language watching people. We're very salt of the earth, down to earth. It also does not follow the politically correct patterns of modern preachers and teachers. So if you're looking for that, also definitely not the place for you. And our Meet David series, so you can kind of think of Ruth as a mini series in a series. And let's get going here. What do we have to say about Ruth today? All right, we met in Ruth 1. Let me go back. We met in Ruth 1. We've got Joseph with his amazing dream coat over here. We've got our sassy Moabite. And we last left Ruth and Naomi destitute. Everybody got wiped. The husband and the sons, they all got wiped out. And the women are destitute with no one left to take care of them. So they return from the land of Moab, and they're returning back to Bethlehem. Now, some are confused when I refer to Mr. Richards here as a Moabite because we think of him later on in our Bible series as Ephraim. But that's because of what we're seeing here in Ruth, where this Moabite pagan bloodline very quickly gets integrated into the Ephrathites, okay? So then that is all Ephraim, and that eventually goes on to lead the northern tribes of Israel, and Ephraim is a picture of the northern kingdom. I tend to say Jacob, Israel, or Ephraim Joseph, to distinguish the northern kingdom as we start to move forward in our studies, just because there's so much confusion with so many people having modern Israel stuck in their head. So when I say Israel, they're thinking of the modern Israel, which is totally different than the ancient northern kingdom. And so I'm trying to separate that out. So I often refer to the northern kingdom instead of just saying Israel. I either say Jacob Israel or I say Ephraim to represent all of those northern tribes. Okay, moving right along. Then we have David here, and David is our Ephrathite living within the boundaries of the land controlled by the tribe of Judah. But we have that big question mark where I am just going with David's not a Judahite by bloodline. And it's tricky. It's tricky because the Bible calls people, quote unquote, Judahites, right? Just like they call northern people Israelites. But just because you're an Israelite from the north doesn't mean you're from the tribe of Ephraim, right? It could mean you could be from Zebulun, which is a totally different bloodline. You could be from Manasseh, which is a totally different bloodline. So, just because you're in the kingdom of Israel doesn't mean that every single one of those lineage, Israel's called Ephraim a lot because Ephraim's the leader. But that doesn't mean that everyone in the northern tribe called quote unquote Israelites is all from Ephraim. They have different tribal affiliations. So therefore, when Ephraim, the land, Jacob, Israel, the northern kingdom people get hauled off to Assyria, right? Now you've got, quote unquote, Judahites all through the land of Judea post-Babylon. But every single time the Bible says Judean or Judahite, it doesn't mean lineage. It means name of the kingdom. So we've got to parse that out. It's very convenient to say, oh, everybody's Judah, and Judah means Jewish, and Jewish means Israel. No. Judah is a bloodline and a territory. And they're not the same thing, right? One gets Benjamin confused and says, well, Benjamin's in Judah, but not of Judah. Well, same thing with Ephrathites. And we're going to start to see how Ruth is such a critical book for the jankifying of this bloodline, because they're breaking all kinds of laws and rules and genealogy stuff. It gets real janky as we proceed through Ruth. So we're calling David an Ephrathite, living in the southern territory controlled by Judah. Okay. And that's his lineage. We're going back. David's not here yet. We're going back through his generations and looking in Ruth at his great grandparents. And they are named Ephrathites. Okay. Keyword Ephrathite. And, you know, it's when you look at patriarchy, right? We've got, I think this is so important to stop and review. We've got Jacob, right, now so named Israel. So Jacob, Israel, and his 12 sons. And I often delegate these tribal affiliations by using the words sons of Leah and sons of Rachel. Now, we know that there's also more sons who come from the maidservants, okay? But Judah is one of the sons of Leah, while Joseph is one of the sons of Rachel. Since Joseph, we're looking at Joseph because he brings the Ephraim bloodline, and we're looking at Judah because this little slice of Bethlehem Ephrathah is within the boundaries of the land that Judah controls, right? We have to look at Judah. So those are kind of the two main tribes we're parsing out here in Ruth. So sons of Leah, that's Judah. Sons of Rachel, that's Joseph Ephraim. So when you've got a slice of land called Ephrath, who was buried on the way in Ephrath? Rachel. So in Genesis 48, right, that would be Joseph and Ephraim. So in Genesis 48, when Jacob's on his deathbed and hands the Abraham covenant to Ephraim and makes him the firstborn and getting all those firstborn inheritance rights in Genesis 48, he's rambling on about this little piece of land where his beloved wife, Rachel, was buried. And then he kind of gets interrupted and the boys come in and he does the blessings and he's like, and the land goes to you. So he's talking about that same piece of land in the bottom of Genesis 48 that he was talking about in the top of Genesis 48, where Rachel was buried. So that land inheritance of Ephrath, that little slice of Bethlehem Ephrathah, is not going to be in control of the bloodline of the sons of Leah, which would be Judah. Although it's with the territory of Judah, the land Rachel was buried in is going to be inherited by the sons of Rachel. That's the key. And that's why I keep saying sons of Leah versus sons of Rachel. They're not going to give the sons of Leah the land where the sons of Rachel were buried, right? The mother of it's not going to work. So they're going to give Rachel's buried place in Ephrath to the sons of Rachel, which is Joseph, Ephraim. That's why they control this little slice of land in Bethlehem within the tribe of Judah. So whenever the Bible's telling you in Micah, I think it might come up in Luke or Matthew. And here in Ruth, we're seeing the Ephrathites, the Ephrathites. Well, Ephrath is Rachel, Rachel's burial. So Ephrath is controlled by the sons of Rachel, that bloodline. Although it's situated in the tribe of Judah, which is why Micah says, "O Bethlehem Ephrathah, you are small among or amidst the tribes of Judah." So you're surrounded. You're this teeny tiny little piece of a bloodline of Ephrath, of the sons of Rachel, in Ephrath, surrounded by all of these Judah people, bloodlines. But out of you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, out of you, sons of Rachel, who inherited that little tiny slice of land in Genesis 48, out of you will come the leader. That's Jesus. And so you trace that back. Jesus is then a son of Rachel, not Leah. So when they're like, oh, David's a Judahite or Jesus is Judean, they're talking about location, not tribe. If it was tribal, Bethlehem Ephrathah, where Rachel, sons of Rachel inherited, would not constantly being pointed out in the Bible. That's why David is set apart as being an Ephrathite, because it's denoting not only location, but that inheritance to the sons of Rachel. That and people are missing this. So we've got David, who we're looking at the lineage of the sons of Rachel in Ephrath, the Ephrathites, okay, that go to David. So he's going to be Ephraim, inheriting the land within Judah. So arguably, he's a locational Judahite, southern kingdom, but he's a bloodline Ephrathite, Ephraim, son of Rachel, okay? And then that all leads straight down to Jesus. I hope I cleared that up if there was any confusion there. We're just reading the easy to read version today. The reason for that is we've already talked about the names of God and how they genify that. And I just really, this is a narrative story, and I just want the narrative story today. So I'm picking the easy to read version because, like, you know, let's be kids, right? And just learn the story. I might toggle around a bit. So Ruth meets Boaz. Okay. Well, there was a rich man named Boaz living in Bethlehem, and Boaz was one of Naomi's close relatives from Elimelech's family. And then again, you can see right here, they're stressing that Boaz is from the family of Elimelech. And what family is Elimelech? Well, he's an Ephrathite, son of Rachel. Okay. One day, Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, I think I'll go to the fields. Maybe I can find someone who will be kind to me and let me gather the grain they leave in their fields. Naomi said, fine, daughter, go ahead. So Ruth went to the fields and she followed the workers who were cutting the grain, and she gathered the grain that was left or that they dropped. It happened that part of the field belonging to Boaz. What? That doesn't make sense. It happened that part of the field belonged to Boaz, the man from Elimelech's family. All right, so she's in Boaz's field. Later, Boaz came to the field from Bethlehem and greeted his workers. And he said, Lord be with you. And the workers answered, may the Lord bless you. Then Boaz spoke to his servant, who was in charge of the workers. And he asked, whose girl is that? And the servant answered, she's a Moabite woman who came with Naomi from the country of Moab. She came early this morning and asked me if she could follow the workers and gather the grain that was left on the ground. She rested only a short time in the shelter. Then Boaz said to Ruth, listen, child, stay here in my field. He really said maiden, but whatever. Listen, maiden, young woman, stay here in my field to gather grain for yourself. There's no need for you to go to any other field. Continue following behind my women workers or my maid servants. Watch to see which fields they go into to cut the grain and follow them. I've warned the dudes not to bother you. When you're thirsty, go and drink from the same water jug my men drink from. He means workers. Then Ruth bowed very low to the ground, and she said to Boaz, I'm a foreigner, so I'm surprised she even noticed me. Yet not only is she a foreigner, she's a pagan foreigner from over in Moab. Boaz answered her, I know about all the help you have given to your mother-in-law, Naomi. I know you helped her even after your husband died. And I know that you left your father and mother in your own country and came here to this country. You didn't know anyone from this country, but you came with Naomi. The Lord will reward you for all the good things you've done. The Lord, the God of Israel, will pay you in full. You have come to him for safety, and he will protect you." Then Ruth said, "I hope I can continue to please you, sir. You're very kind. I'm only a servant, and not even one of your own servants. But you've said kind words to me and comforted me." Well, at mealtime, Boaz told Ruth, "Come and sit and eat some of our bread. Dip your bread in our vinegar." They had like the oil and vinegar thing going on. So Ruth sat down with the workers, and Boaz gave her some roasted grain. Ruth ate until she was full, and there was some food left. So Ruth got up and got back to work. Then Boaz told his servants, "Let Ruth gather even around the piles of grain. Don't stop her, and make her work easier by dropping some full heads of grain down every once in a while for her, and let her gather that grain. Don't tell her to stop." So now he's like dropping crumbs for her. Naomi hears about Boaz. I don't usually read these because they're inserted to like help you think, and we don't need that. Ruth worked in the fields until evening. Then she separated the grain from the chaff, or the wheat from the tares, or, not wheat from tares, but the grain from the, never mind, I'll just read it. There was about 1/2 a bushel of barley. Ruth carried the grain into town to show her mother-in-law what she had gathered. She also gave her the food that was left from lunch. Her mother-in-law asked her, "Where did you gather all this grain? Holy fucking shit, where did you work? Bless the man who noticed you and let you get away with all this." So she's got a big-ass load. Then Ruth told her who she had worked with, and she said, "The man I worked with today is a man named Boaz." Naomi told her daughter-in-law, "Oh, the Lord bless him. He's continued showing his kindness to the living as well as the dead." Then Naomi told her daughter-in-law, "Boaz is one of our relatives. He's one of our protectors." Then Ruth said, "Boaz also told me to come back and continue working. He said that I should work closely with his servants until the harvest is finished." So Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, Ruth, "It is good for you to continue working with his women servants, and if you work in another field, some men might hurt you." So Ruth continued working closely with the women servants of Boaz. She gathered grain until the barley harvest was finished. She also worked there through the end of the wheat harvest. And Ruth continued living with her mother-in-law, Naomi. All right, so we've got a lot going on here. I want you to really pay attention to this line. Boaz is one of our relatives. He is our protectors. Because we're just reading like a children's version here, like the easy to read version, it's not really going to come out in that. So let me see if I can switch to like the ASV maybe. I don't know. And let's just dick around here and see if we can find. I'm not one of your handmaids or maidservants. Okay. Put a pin in that word. Where's the part about Boaz? Okay, for this little part, we're just going to jump over into Amplified Bible Classic Edition. And what this is going to do is show us a little more detail about this redemption piece. I want you to be able to just see the words in there before we get deep in talking about the redemption laws. It's good for you to go out with his maidens, lest any other fields you're molested or bothered by the men. Stay close to him. Here it is. Naomi said to her, "The man is a near relative of ours, one who has the right to redeem us." Okay, the right to redeem us is a really, really important phrase. And you can see how she just kind of said, "Oh, he's one of our protectors," right? No. There's something much more important here called the right to redeem. And we're going to get to that in just a minute. So I just wanted to point that out to you that it's in there, but you're not going to get it with every translation. All right. And we're doing a gospel-y, an intro to the Gospels with Jesus' words, kind of a standalone that teaches you some fun facts and some quick tips on how to know what fucking translation to choose and why. Okay, so look for that coming up. But in the meantime, let's get back over here. I think of Boaz. I think of Boaz. Here's the husband that died, Elimelech, and here's the son, the son that died. This is Naomi's husband that died. Here's Ruth's husband that died, and then we've got Boaz. He's older than Ruth, right? Because he's Naomi's husband's brother. So it's sort of like her uncle, if you will. So he's an older guy. All right, so what we've done is we meet Boaz. We are gleaning the wheat. We're working among the maidservants, and we've learned of this phrase, right to redeem. So gleaning means, harvesting or pulling the wheat from the chaff, from the stuff that you don't eat is the chaff. Maid servants, these are usually young maidens. They're servants in the household. They're doing the laundry, the washing, the cooking, the cleaning, that sort of thing for your more wealthy people and your landowners. Oftentimes, maid servants, they can be, women from other lands that come in, migrants, sojourners, people who are working off a debt. There's a lot of legal ways that you could become a maid servant. If you're a young woman and you're unmarried, and your husband dies, or you don't have a husband, or you're from another land, or your parents died and you're orphaned, okay, you might go into someone's house and have safety and shelter and become a maidservant, right? And sort of, work in the household, if you will, okay? And you get food and shelter and protection in exchange for, whatever you're doing. Okay, the other thing is, right to redeem. Now, you have to understand the society we were in. Remember, we're in Mad Max land before the kings started. This is, generations before King David. So we're in Mad Max land. It's like a post-apocalyptic warlord kind of place. So safety is critical. We talked about the role of women in that time. And we've also talked about polygamy in this time. In a previous video, it's in one of David's Psalms, I think. Maybe I'll pull that out and slap it on a video and remind you of where that is. So society was working a whole lot differently, okay? And remember, Elimelech was the husband of Naomi. And if you take a look at this map, this just shows you how they went from Bethlehem, and they went up and over the Red Sea into the land of Moab. And then after the famine, they heard in the fields that the famine was over and came rushing on back to Bethlehem. All right. Or at least Naomi and Ruth did. So this kind of gives you an idea of their journey and where they went to and where they came from. Okay. Now, the right to redeem law. The laws of this time, and this does have to do with why you hear so much in the Bible about marrying family, right? And we think of that as like, Alabama marrying your cousin. It's a little janky. That's not what it was. And we also think of polygamy and look down on that. I'm a huge fan of polygamy over baby daddies that we fucking have today. Okay. Baby daddies, fuck baby daddies. Go with polygamy. Way better society and system. And it's still active in the Middle East today. So I honestly don't have much of a problem with polygamy, the way it was practiced then, and the reasons it was practiced then, and the way it is still practiced in the Middle East culture today. I don't get on board with, this weird, janky, modern Western idea of polygamy, of like, let's wife swap. Like, that's not what we're doing here. But to understand polygamy, and you have to understand right to redeem. And that's what they're saying about Boaz. When you're destitute, right? We know Naomi's and Ruth are destitute. They don't have the men to protect them. So they're kind of on their own. The first thing is that there's a law, and I think we talked about this in David's Psalms. We also talked about this maybe in the Ten Commandments series somewhere. But there was a legal custom. There was a law. Not everybody followed the laws, right? But there was a law in this culture where if you were poor, you could go to the sides, the edges of the fields and glean from the fields sort of the leftovers, right? So Boaz is sending his workers out, and they're harvesting a certain portion of the field, but they're leaving pieces in the corners or on the edges of the fields that he owns for the poor to come and glean so that they can eat and stay alive. Okay, so it's sort of like their tithing or their charity to take care of the people around them. They didn't have government fucking sponsored programs, so the wealthy would leave a portion of the corners of their fields for the poor to come and eat from. So what Boaz is telling, so that's what Ruth is doing. And what Boaz is telling her is, don't go to another field, okay, to like grab your free shit, because you're going to get beat up, raped, killed, harassed, molested, and fucked with, right? If you don't want to get catcalled and get hurt, stay here in my field. Follow my guys around. You're safe here. And by the way, guys, dump a little extra on the side for her to gather. So Boaz is protecting her and taking care of her and saying, he's already sort of enveloped her into the household by giving her that right and saying, you're protected, stay with my people, my dudes, I've told them to look after you. I've told my girls to hang with you. You're good here. There's no need for you to go out to those dangerous Mad Max fields. You're good. I've heard what you've done with Naomi. So that's the first thing that we're doing, of how she stumbles upon Boaz's field and why that conversation took place. So the legal cultural understanding of that. The next part, though, is when Naomi says, oh, you were in Boaz's field and he took care of you and gave you all this big ass wheat. Fantastic. He must like you a little bit there. And by the way, he's one of our family members or our tribe. When they use the word family or kin, I want you to think tribal. Okay. So he's part of our bloodline. He's one of our relatives. He could be an uncle. He could be a cousin. He could be a second cousin on the whoever's side. But somewhere in that bloodline, Boaz is in our lineage. So what this means for redemption, okay, is because he's got that bloodline, because he's in our kin and our extended family, he comes with the legal right to adopt you into the household as a wife and give you protection and stability. And with him, so she gets the payoff of being protected. But also, if there's any land ownership from Elimelech, who was killed, or Elimelech's sons, or anything that he inherits, right, that inheritance is going to follow the line down. So the man's going to come and claim that land, and now he's going to be able to hold the land deed. So let's just do a modern example, because I'm the widow of a rich dude. So let's put that into this ancient context, okay? So let's just say, right, I'm married to a rich dude. Okay, Davis has got all this fucking property in Wales, right? I can marry another guy. I can marry Davis's brother. I got you. He's going to come in and take care of me. And all that land now gets folded in back to the patriarchal bloodline, so the bloodline doesn't die out with me, with Davis. Right? They want to keep, because this isn't just about love. This is about finances. This is about business. This is about DNA. This is about carrying on that bloodline and the land that's attached to that family name. So Davis dies. Let's just say all of his kids die. So he's not leaving that property to the patriarchal bloodline of his sons. It's stuck with me. So Davis's brother's going to come in and say, I'm the patriarchal guy next in line. I'm going to marry and adopt all of that land to keep it in the family and under the patriarchal bloodline. Patriarchal bloodlines were for blessings, legal documents, finances, property, land ownership. All of that bloodline followed through the patriarch. The patriarchs held that bloodline, financial, kings, priests, princes, whatever it was, came through the men. Now, this is something that's really hard for women to understand, modern women. But I want you to think of it like this, okay? In a post-apocalyptic warlord world, right? Where women can be grabbed and taken and raped, and tribes are warring against each other, and guys are constantly fighting and battling and warring. And there's a lot of disease, and people weren't living to the ripe old age of whatever. And so the woman's husband dies, right? And imagine all that property went to the wife, to the woman, and she has no sons. She could be raped by a rival tribe member in order to produce offspring to now take that land. Okay? So now you're going to have a bunch of people from different tribes concocting schemes to get rid of the husbands and take the wives, so that property goes to the dudes. Does that make sense? Or imagine that these laws weren't in place, right? And, the women are running around banging all kinds of other guys from different tribal bloodlines, and the property's going, and the inheritance is getting screwed up, and it's not staying with the lineage of the men who have inherited the land. So you're a dude and you get this inheritance, and then some lady runs off and just takes it from you, right? You get killed off, and all of that inheritance that's been in your family for generations, in your bloodline, just gets swept away because Susie Bimbo decides, I can't survive here on my own. I'm in a post-apocalyptic land. I've got to cling to whatever powerful warlord is willing to take me from whatever tribe. I just want to survive. So she's not worrying. Women of this time are not, and if women are honest in modern times, they're not, they're going to admit when society breaks down and things are dangerous, women are worried about safety for themselves and their children. Period. I don't give a shit what bloodline you're from. If you're protecting me, I'm with you. And that's just reality, like it or not. So a lot of times these laws are in place so that entire bloodlines don't get wiped out for power and property. So only if you're in the bloodline of the property owner can you redeem that property. That's important, and that's why it's there. That's also why polygamy is there, because, if you've got a couple of sisters, right, and one of them husband dies, you're just going to let her go and be a hooker, or just, go out and be destitute? Or is the sister going to go, you know what? I'm going to have my husband marry you and bring you into the household so you can legally be part of this household. And then all of the brothers' stuff comes under the protection of that family through legal transfer. We don't see things that way because we're also not living in a post-apocalyptic world, although we might be soon. But when society breaks down, shit's different. When you don't have this governmental structure running the show. So I need you guys to keep that in mind. It's so important. Okay? So they're going to come in and adopt. So you have to realize there's a pecking order or a hierarchy, right? So Davis dies, doesn't have any sons. I get all the shit. Okay? His brother comes in and marries me. Well, let's say he doesn't have a brother. Now his uncle, his cousin, his second cousin, his whatever is it kind of goes in a line. Okay, next up, next, until you find someone who's willing to step in, fold on and take on that responsibility and protect the wife. Okay. So, and keep that bloodline going so the bloodline doesn't die out with the dude. That's kind of why we have a lot of polygamy happening. And that's what right to redeem means. Even today in the Middle East, for the cultures and societies that practice polygamy, for example, Saudi still does this. It's getting less, well, I don't know if it's getting less common. I was sort of in the expat community, so it was less common. I'm not sure. But there is a law where you have to have a certain amount of wealth and assets before you just run around marrying a bunch of women, okay? And this is why I say I like me better than baby daddy crap. Because why would you run around and have a baby with a dude that gives you zero protection or security or safety, neither for you nor your child? I mean, Western women just spread for whoever and having all these kids. It's freaking the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. Okay. And then trying to hassle the government to take care of you. Like, how stupid can you be? You know, you should not be providing offspring to a man who is not able, capable, nor willing to guarantee you provision, safety, and protection for you and your offspring. So, like, girls, get your head out of your ass, and dudes, start to fucking step up a little bit. Because, you know, in Mideast cultures, you're not allowed to just have a billion wives or a billion kids and all this shit unless you can show financial responsibility to be able to afford that next of kin wife to bring them in and responsibly handle the financial burden of that extended family of additional wives and the offspring that comes with that. So, like, the West is really freaking backwards, you guys, and get your shit together. Like, get your shit together on both sides. Just saying. This has been a public service announcement. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. So it's a good deal for the girl, and it's a good deal for the dude, and it's a great deal for the tribe and the bloodline. Okay? Both matriarchal and patriarchal. So like I said, marriage wasn't always about love. Okay? Just remember that. So when it says Boaz had the right to redeem, that means he's in the line of dudes who could step up in our family and marry me or you and cover us. Got it? He's in the line of Elimelech. All right. Actually, there's a debate as to who he was. He could have been Elimelech's brother. I believe, well, brother, uncle. I believe he is Elimelech's brother. Okay? So when you follow that genealogy, got Elimelech and Boaz, right? Elimelech marries Naomi, dies off. The Moab girl comes in. Here's Elimelech's brother, same bloodline. This is really, really important to understand because there are no more male heirs in Elimelech the Ephrathite, said Rachel, to redeem Elimelech's bloodline and to inherit the property and the blessings being carried down through that bloodline. So Naomi is sort of standing in this legal gray area where the land is Elimelech's. She's the widow with no sons to inherit the land. So the land's kind of in legal limbo. Because as a woman, she only has temporary control of the land, right? Because women can't really own property and get inheritances. So she's sort of stuck in this legal gray area because there's nowhere to give the land to. But Naomi's not going to really, quote unquote, inherit it herself permanently, because according to the law, she can't. A woman can't take that. And also, they just don't have the power and ability to like run the fields and tell the workers and sell the, like, women don't have that position in society to be running a business. Okay. So someone's got to come and take the burden of the land, but also the benefits of the land from Naomi, because she's got nowhere to put it. There's no man's hands to put the land in from Elimelech, just like there were no man hands to put the daughters in to take care of them. Okay. So it's this really weird legal gray area that needs to be solved. And you don't want the land inherited, your bloodline's inheritance, to go to a different tribe, which is why the right to redeem exists, because it has to do with carrying that bloodline. So long story short, a man from the tribe of Judah, meaning bloodline, can't redeem the land from a widow of the bloodline of Joseph Ephraim, the Ephrathite. So something janky is immediately going on in the lineage here of David. And I think you're going to see that. And there's a bunch more laws that get broken down the road. So we're going to see how this points to tampering and contradiction. But just put a pin in all that. Put a pin in that. We're getting there. And he's eligible to redeem the family of Naomi to carry on that Elimelech bloodline, because he still has the bloodline. Get it? That's who Boaz is. And it seems like he's kind of got the hots for Ruth, and it seems like Ruth's kind of got the hots for him. Just saying. So that's where we are. But let's see if Boaz steps in with his right to redeem, and what happens to this very important bloodline that almost got knocked out. And we will look at that the next time.